Hi friends, it's Auntie Cuckoo, and this is a much requested video I'm bringing you today on my succulents, kind of how I care for them and what they look like. These are a few of my favorite pots. These are not all of my pots, and we do have quite a few in ground as well. So I do live in Southern California, very close to the beach, and when we moved here, goodness, 16 years ago, I found succulents love this area, and they just seem to cooperate with me, and I don't have to do a whole lot for them. They are very good for my climate, and so I'm not aware of how they do in other places, but for California, especially where I live, the soil seems to be just right for them. I will show you what kind of soil I do use, and how I care for them is pretty much the finger test. So during the summer, it's a lot hotter, and I do like to move them into shady areas under an umbrella or under a sun cover, but for the most part I only water them when I feel that they need it. So what I do is I just literally take my finger and test the soil. Now I watered these last night, so this one's moist to touch, kind of like a really moist piece of cake would feel. You don't want your succulents to get soggy in any way. That is bad for them, as well as any kind of pots that don't promote drainage. So if you have a pot that has a bottom with no drainage hole, you may want to put some stones in at the bottom to raise that up and allow for good drainage. Now if my pots are feeling moist and they don't need any kind of watering, I literally do nothing. I wait for them to outgrow their pots, and then I just split them up and make more. Now when I do split up my plants, what I do, and I did this last night, is I take off some leaves. So some of these, none of these are outgrown, but like I'll show you, this one's getting close right here. It's getting really tall, and what'll happen is it'll get probably too tall very soon, and so I will just snip it off, and I'll be left with a nice long piece of succulent like this. And I'm going to want to cut that down and put the smaller piece back in a pot, but I go ahead and very gently wiggle off any extra stems like this, and I just kind of keep them in a bowl for a couple of days and let them sort of dry out so that they can begin to root. Now once they have started to show that they've dried out, you can move them to a soil pot. This is my first attempt at actually propagating properly. Now I know some propagated succulents are illegal, so you'll have to look at that for your area. Now like this little guy, let me see, you'll see he's got little stems rooting there. So what's going to happen is these have been in here about 2 weeks, and I just kept them in my garage because it's been so hot, and there is a little bit of sunlight in my garage, but it's cooler, and so some of these are doing quite well. Now not all of them are going to get little roots. This one's doing quite well. There's another one doing really well. So there's another one. Some of these will not take, and that's fine, but instead of throwing them in the trash, I'm going to try and grow some more. What ends up happening is they get something like this at the end of them. Now this was just a little baby that I found on the ground and put it in the soil, and it'll just be like a little baby succulent at the end of this petal. And so when I go to pot it, I include this And most of my succulents have come from cuttings of other plants in our yard and from a neighbor who loves succulents and shares them with me. So she'll give me some cuttings, and then I've never really truly propagated them properly the way that you're supposed to, which is to let them dry out a couple days and then set them on some soil and then just see if they root. I will show you guys when I dismantle my next pot here how I have been doing it, and for the most part, I'd say 90% of the time for me it has worked out. So I literally, when something is getting bushy or crazy, just tend to break it apart and stick it right back in soil, and I would say honestly 90% of the time it works out. All of these have worked out. The only instance where it hasn't is right here. I had one of these, and I don't know any of their names, but I had one of these in here, and it is the only one out of this massive pot of just cuttings, things that I've pulled off other plants, that didn't take. And this has been together at least a couple of months. So the trick will be to not overwater your plants. Definitely always do the finger test. And in the winter, I water them very, very rarely. I tend to water them more in spring as well as summer. Now let me try and walk around the other side of the table here to show you the back sides here. This is the truck I got at Walmart, and I had a little pot that fit in here perfectly. So I love this one back here. It's one of the fuzzier kind. And I just like to put as many different type together that I can, because I think it just builds on the color and texture. I just think they're so pretty. It's kind of like a miniature decoration. So I just love putting them together. Again, no rhyme or reason. I know that for mine, what has always worked out best is a lot of soil and placing them very close together. That's how mine have been very happy. Here's another one from the back to show you. And then I'll go ahead and pause this and show you. I'm going to actually repot one of my pots that is needing a little love and attention. Alright, so this is the pot we're going to work on today. Now, as you can see, there's lots of dried leaves that have fallen off. These guys have gotten pretty tall, and this was in a very sunny area, and the heat has kind of gotten to some of it, as you can see. So we're just gonna repot this one. I don't know all the technical terms or anything, but I'm just gonna show you what I do, and hopefully that helps if you're interested. Now this is another pot that I've been taking from. It's one of my larger ones. I've taken almost everything out. What happens is they just tend to grow. I haven't touched this in over a year. So they just tend to outgrow the pot, and it's just time to remix them. I actually take this time to freshen up their soil. So let me show you what I do. I have an old pot and I mix it up myself. So it is 2 parts of potting soil to 1 part sand and 1 part perlites. So perlites, let me show you my big bag. I buy this at Costco. This is the biggest bag they sell it in, and it's right around $16. And it's basically just a way to help keep your soil moist and to promote drainage. So I just do 1 part perlite to 1 part sand and 2 parts potting soil, and then I just kind of mix it all up. And I'm going to put you guys on the stand so I can show you me working on this one. I'm going to pull everything out, freshen up my soil. Now if you don't want to mix up your own soil, you can use cactus potting soil, and I have never used cactus food, but I think I might give it a try just after summer to freshen them all up. So if I do that, maybe we'll make another video on that, see how they like it. But you definitely want to go with something good for drainage and aeration, or even cactus potting soil. So let's get to redoing this pot. Alright, so I've gone ahead and mixed up my soil there, and now I'm going to go ahead and start pulling out my plants, see what needs some attention, what needs to be broken out into smaller pieces. This is an example of one. It's kind of growing off to the side there. I'll probably break off some of these. And then this is what these look like when you pull them out. Kind of dried, almost like sticks, but this part is really good still. There's another one. Alright, so sorry about that, guys. I was pulling the plants out and my battery died, so I had to switch out my battery. So this guy is not looking so great. Keep an eye on this one. Obviously, it's something that has rooted, probably just too much sun. So let me just finish pulling these out, and then I'm going to go ahead and trash a lot of these dead leaves here and put in the fresh soil. This one's a goner, just that little bud there. Now here's something I want to show you. There's little babies right here around the edge. So I'm going to take these off, just pulling them loosely. They've got their own little root system sort of started there. Separate them out. And I'll put them in a smaller pot. You just want to kind of twist them gently. And then even this little guy. And then I like to pull off any kind of dead leaves that have seen better days, and that way when we put it back in the dirt we can put it a little bit deeper and keep that root ball nice and moist in the soil. There's another one we're going to propagate. Just like to clean them all up. I do this about twice a year, about once for every plant per year, depending on how their growth has been. This one did not do well. Any kind of big chunks of dry soil I pull off to the side, and I'll add to my next round of soil, get them nice and moist, and add them up to my mixture. So I like to actually remove quite a bit and mix in some fresh. As you can tell, I'm not a glove-wearing gardener. I like to just get in there and be careful. Obviously, if it was a cactus, I would just use lots of care. Now this pot is not does not have a drainage hole, and so I'm not seeing any signs of needing to put stones. The soil down here at the bottom is really moist but not soggy. I've got a few roots probably from our big guy there, and it's in the sun, so it has done really well with the amount of moisture I've been giving it. So now I'm going to mix in some fresh soil, and then maybe we'll go around the yard and get some more cuttings if we need to fill up our new pot. I like to mix in my old soil with my fresh soil. I find that over time the perlites kind of deplete and the sand runs off as well. So this is still going to be the star of our show, so we're going to want to give him plenty of room. So I'm going to give him a head start down here. And then I like to put the soil as close and tight around the base, especially of an established plant like this, just to give it some stability. And as you can see, our soil, we already need more soil. So I'm gonna use some of this that I have down here from this pot and mix up some more if I need to. Okay, now I'm gonna work on pulling out a few things to add from this pot that I showed you that is been being pulled from. So I've got this guy, and that stem is really long. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually pull these guys off individually. Just break them like that. And then I try and clean them up with any kind of dead leaves around them. And then I'm just gonna find a home. I'm literally just, to my liking, just put them in. So I just went out front and I found some of this that's actually needing cut back in my front yard. It's in the ground. I'm gonna add this to our pot as well. So here is the pot. Now I'm kind of running out of things of different color and texture, so I didn't use too much. I was hoping to find something else to add, but this guy in the center is so large, kind of made it hard. So I just stuck with what I have a lot of and I can afford to lose if they don't like this little new home for themselves. and I just gave it a little bit of a watering. You don't want to overwater them, especially at the beginning. And this is what it looks like. So maybe I can do an update in a few weeks and show you how the growth is coming along. I literally just break my pots apart and sort of redecorate them. That's how I've always done it. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing how I take care of my succulents, and I'll see you guys back very soon in the next video.